They kicked her out for looking poor. Then 6 black cars surrounded the store. She hadn't even stopped crying yet when the street went silent. 6 matte black SUVs pulled up in formation. Men in suits stepped out like shadows. They didn't ask questions. They didn't knock. They opened the boutique door like they owned the place. But this story didn't start with power. It started with silence. She walked into the boutique like a whisper, not demanding attention, not pretending to belong, just hopeful. But in a place where handbags cost more than rent, hope isn't welcome. Labels are. She was stunning. The kind of beauty that doesn't need approval. But her coat was faded. Her shoes weren't shiny. And that was all it took. The manager noticed her the moment she entered. Didn't greet her, didn't smile, just watched. She stopped at a deep black dress. Her fingers brushed the fabric like she was afraid it might disappear. Then, with all the courage she could gather, she asked if she could try it on. The room froze. Not because it was a bold question, but because they couldn't believe she had the audacity to speak. The manager turned, walked over with slow, loud heels, and said, "Sweetheart, this dress costs more than your life savings. Let's not waste each other's time." The manager laughed, then mocked her, then told her to leave. Not quietly, not politely, but loudly, so everyone could hear. She walked out holding back tears, and sat on a bench across the street, clutching her phone like it was the only thing left in the world that still made sense. She made a single call, and said one sentence. Then the phone at the front desk of the store rang. The manager answered casually at first, until her face went pale. She stopped speaking, just listened, then whispered, "Sir, I didn't know." Everyone around her fell silent as she slowly lowered the phone. Her hands were trembling. 5 minutes later, 6 black SUVs pulled up. Men in suits stepped out, earpieces in, eyes scanning. The boutique went dead silent. Because the girl they humiliated, she wasn't poor. She wasn't lost. She was the daughter of a Russian oligarch, and she wasn't there to try on a dress anymore. She was there to decide if the boutique would survive the month. If you're already hooked, subscribe now, because what she says next, you'll never forget. The security cameras followed her with slow mechanical turns, not because she was doing anything wrong, but because she was the only one in the room who didn't fit the mold. She walked carefully, eyes scanning the room, trying not to draw attention, but attention came anyway. Not the good kind, not the curious kind, the cruel kind. One of the saleswomen nudged another and nodded in her direction. They both giggled. A third rolled her eyes and whispered something under her breath. She pretended not to notice, but her hands started trembling slightly, so she shoved them in her coat pockets. The manager stood at the back of the store, arms crossed, watching like a hawk in heels. She didn't move, didn't greet, didn't offer help. She just observed, like she was waiting for something to justify her hatred. The girl walked past 2 full racks of gowns. She paused at one, touched the edge of a navy blue fabric. For a split second, she let herself imagine it, wearing the dress, walking through the event like she belonged there. But then a laugh snapped her out of it. One of the employees had seen her smile. She backed away from the dress, as if her presence had stained it. She wasn't poor, but she knew that in their eyes she wasn't rich enough to matter. She kept walking, looking, hoping someone, anyone, would ask if she needed help. No one did. To them, she was just another distraction, an interruption in their perfect showroom, someone who needed to be reminded, gently or not, that she didn't belong. But she stayed, because leaving would mean they were right, and even if her voice was shaking, she was about to use it. He took a deep breath, then another, and slowly walked back toward the navy blue dress, the one she hadn't stopped thinking about since she saw it in the window 2 weeks ago. She gently lifted the hanger, turned toward the nearest staff member and spoke in the softest voice. "Excuse me, would it be possible to try this on?" The employee didn't answer. She just glanced at the manager across the store. And that's when she came, heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floor, each step louder than the last, like a storm wrapped in silk. The manager approached with a rehearsed smile, the kind that hides poison behind politeness. She didn't even look at the dress. She looked straight at the girl and said, "Sweetheart, we don't rent here." Her voice was cold, calculated. "We're not one of those places you stroll into for a fantasy. We sell to clients, real clients, not little girls who want to play dress-up." The girl stood frozen, dress still in her hands, eyes wide, heart racing, every word cutting deeper. I wasn't—" She tried to speak, but her voice cracked before she could finish. The manager took the dress from her hands, firmly, like she was doing the gown a favor. "You can take your little daydream somewhere else," she said, loud enough for half the store to hear. Two women near the front smirked. Another shook her head in disapproval. It was a public execution, and her only crime was hoping for a moment of dignity. Then came the final blow, the words she would never forget. "People like you come here to stare, not to shop." The manager turned her back and walked away. And the girl? She didn't fight, didn't argue, didn't shout or cry. She just stood there, completely still. Then quietly walked out. Her shoulders were heavy, her steps were slow, but her silence, that silence screamed. And for everyone watching, it was just another day. They didn't know what they had done, but they were about to find out. She didn't remember pushing the boutique door open, or crossing the street, or sitting down on the cold metal bench. Her body moved on its own. Like her soul had stayed behind right there, in front of the navy blue dress she never got to wear. She sat with her knees pulled up, head down, hands gripping the edge of the bench like it might fly away. The city kept moving, cars, horns, people. But inside her, everything had gone silent. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that echoes. She stared at the sidewalk, trying not to cry, but the tears came anyway, quiet, reluctant, humiliating. She pulled out her phone. Her fingers trembled. She hesitated, then called. One ring, two. Someone picked up. She couldn't even say hello. Her voice cracked immediately. "They didn't even let me speak," she whispered. A pause on the other end. "They treated me like I was garbage." Another pause. Then the person said just one word. "Where are you?" She gave the address, and the call ended. She didn't move, didn't stand, didn't try to wipe the tears. She just sat there, letting the shame burn through her, letting the silence tell the story. She had been judged, dismissed, humiliated, like she was invisible. But the city hadn't seen the last of her, and neither had they. Back inside the boutique, nothing had changed. Not the dresses, not the lighting, not the attitude. The manager laughed, tossing her hair over her shoulder as she recounted the moment. "She actually asked to try it on," she said mockingly. "Can you imagine?" One of the staff let out a soft laugh. Another whispered, "She looked like she came from the subway." They thought it was over, that the girl was gone, that the story ended at the door. But they were wrong. The story was just starting to unfold. The manager poured herself sparkling water behind the counter. That's when the phone rang. She answered on speaker, still smiling, still smug. "Bonjour, boutique. How can I help you?" A pause. Then her expression changed. The smile vanished. She pressed the phone closer to her ear. "Excuse me, who did you say?" Her back straightened, her voice dropped. I didn't know, I swear I didn't know." Silence on the other end. Then she whispered, "She was who?" She lowered the phone slowly. Her hand trembled as she set it down. For the first time that day, she looked afraid. "What's wrong?" a saleswoman asked. The manager didn't answer. She just stared at the door. Across the street, the girl still sat on the bench. But then, a low rumble. So a sound too smooth to be regular traffic. Engines, multiple. The kind of sound that doesn't ask permission. The kind that announces itself. Then, they saw them. 6 matte black SUVs pulling up in formation. Clean, identical, unmarked. They didn't stop in front. They encircled the block. Drivers got out, black suits, sunglasses, earpieces. No talking, just scanning, watching. One walked to the door and held it open. The boutique staff stood frozen. One of them whispered, "Is this a raid?" "No," the manager said, voice nearly gone. "It's worse. If you're still watching, you already feel it. Something big is about to happen. And trust me, What comes next will hit harder than you expect. So go ahead. Subscribe now. You won't want to miss how this ends. The boutique went quiet. Not the comfortable kind of quiet, but the heavy, suffocating kind. The kind that presses against your chest and makes you wish you weren't in the room. One of the doors opened, and the man who stepped in didn't smile. He was tall, older, dressed in a navy suit with a pin no one recognized, but somehow felt important. He didn't look around, didn't ask for help. He walked straight to the front counter like he'd been there before. The manager stood up fast, fixing her jacket, trying to pull herself together. He looked at her once. That was enough. "Do you know what you've done?" His voice was calm. Too calm. I wasn't aware." She began to stutter, but he raised a hand. "Stop talking." She stopped. Behind him, more men entered the boutique. 2 stood near the door. 1 locked it. The customers inside began to shift uncomfortably. 1 tried to speak, but was gently told, "Please remain seated." Another woman whispered to her friend, "Who are these people?" No one had the answer, but everyone felt it. Something had shifted. The door opened one last time, but this time no bell rang. No greeting was given. No one moved. She stepped in slowly, heels clicking softly against the boutique floor like a metronome, counting down to justice. Same face, same eyes, same girl they laughed at. But now she wasn't hiding. Her coat was gone. In its place, a tailored white blazer over a champagne silk blouse, elegant, effortless, and unforgettable. Her blonde hair was down, smooth, deliberate. Diamond earrings barely visible, but undeniable. She didn't look around. She didn't need to. Because everyone was already looking at her. The manager stood frozen, lips slightly parted, eyes wide, still unsure whether to apologize or fall to her knees. The girl walked to the center of the boutique, stood beneath the chandelier, and simply said, "I'd like to try on the black dress." The same one. The same words. But now, the world listened. The manager rushed forward like a servant chasing approval. "Yes, of course. Please, let me bring it to—" "No," the girl said. "Just that." And the manager stopped mid-step. "I'd like to be helped by her." She pointed to the younger employee in the back, the only one who hadn't laughed, the only one who had seen her pain and looked away in shame. The girl smiled gently. "I remember your face." The young employee didn't move at first. Her hands shook slightly. She looked at the manager, then back at the girl. "Me," she whispered. The girl nodded once, firm, kind. "Yes, only you." The others stepped aside. No one said a word. The manager tried to salvage her role. "We can assist together if you prefer." "I don't." The girl turned her back to her, not out of disrespect, but because some people don't deserve a second chance to hurt you. The young employee brought the black dress carefully, handled it like a relic. Her eyes were glossy. "I'm sorry for before." The girl smiled, not bitter, not vengeful. "You didn't mock me." That was enough. She walked into the fitting room. And when she stepped out in that same navy black dress, the boutique fell silent again. She looked like the kind of woman people write about, but more than that, she looked like someone who knew exactly who she was. She walked to the register, placed 6 dresses down and said, "I'll take all of these, also let her keep the full commission," and she looked back at the young employee. "Pick something for yourself, anything you want. It's a gift." From one girl who's been underestimated to another. The girl turned to leave. No grand speech, no final jab, just quiet strength. But the silence she left behind spoke louder than anything she could have said. The manager stood stiff behind the counter, trying to hold her posture, but her hands betrayed her. They were shaking. The boutique owner stepped forward. No anger in his voice, just disappointment. "You've embarrassed the brand," he said. "Worse, you embarrassed yourself." The manager opened her mouth, but no words came out. He didn't yell, he didn't raise his voice. He just nodded to the security at the door. They walked over calmly, one on each side. She didn't resist, didn't argue, didn't even look back at the girl. She just walked out, or rather was walked out. Everyone watched, but no one spoke. because there was nothing left to say. Some lessons don't need to be screamed. Some power doesn't need to be proven. And some people walk into your life looking like nothing, but leave showing you everything. Kindness is never wasted. Not the small kind, not the silent kind, not the kind that happens when no one's watching. Because sometimes, the girl you ignore is the daughter of a man who owns the street you work on. And sometimes, the person you choose to treat with respect is the reason your life changes forever. Status fades. Looks fade. But character, that always stays. So the next time you look at someone's shoes, look a little higher. You might just see a crown you weren't meant to recognize. If this story moved you, even just a little, imagine what's coming next. Here on Surprising Tales, we don't just tell stories, we remind you what people are capable of, for better or worse. So if you believe the world still needs kindness, dignity, and a little justice, hit subscribe. You'll never watch people the same way again.